Greetings, everyone. Thanks for joining me. I'm having a little weird thing with YouTube, but whatever. We'll just power through it. Um, Thanks for joining us. Russell will be along in a couple of minutes. He is running late, coming home from church, maybe, or something, or doing something with his kids. Either way, he will be along shortly. He's pulling up to his house as we speak. So I'll start off and I'll talk about some other stuff that and then we'll get into more of the Crawford questions about recruiting, things like that when Russell jumps on. We can start from the top talking about basketball. Obviously, in the final 3 games of the season, regular season right now, Georgia Tech is off on a bye during the midweek this week. So no games tonight or tomorrow night, which is why we're able to do this. Or last night, because today's Wednesday. They play Florida State on Saturday in the last home game, and then back-to-back road games next week at Wake Forest, who's been playing pretty well, and then at Virginia. It's interesting with Virginia because there's been a little bit of soft rumors about Tony Bennett maybe hanging it up. So that could be an interesting game as that one comes up as well. Team still up and down, still yo-yo. When you're relying on 2 true freshmen who don't have their games really fully defined yet, and you're relying on, Miles Kelly, who they're asking to do way more and has struggled in an increased role. I think it's sort of a bad recipe, and that's sort of where things have been backed up right now for them. But I'll start with some questions in the chat about basketball just because that'll be a little easier. First one is about Jalen Forrest. Transcript issue. I would be pretty surprised if he's on scholarship next year. I think he's a guy that's a numbers game guy, right? Like, so if they have spots left over, maybe if his situation's improved enough, they'll take him. But as of right now, I have not heard anyone say a peep about Jalen Forrest. So that makes me think that it's not on the horizon right now. I would be mildly surprised, but I guess it just depends on how much attrition there is and stuff. I know his dad's around the program a lot, hangs out with Damon and those guys a lot as well. But for whatever reason, it's not clicking or something. So I don't know. We'll see what happens with that down the road. You know what? I'll look up and see how he's doing right now, actually, while we're talking about him. He's at South Plains College, I think, in Texas. And he is not starting there, shooting 29%, and 4.8 points per game in 24 minutes. 4.8 points per game and 7.8 minutes per game. Sort of tells you what you need to know about that one, doesn't it? So yeah, that's what's going on with him. But I guess, like I said, you never know. Obviously, they got Carter Murphy in. The different situation, a guy who was a high academic kid that was coming from Air Force and chose to walk on this year. So, you could always see different things as it kind of moves along. All right, so the next question is, do we have a budget to sign a legit big or 2 in the hoops off season? If no, how far off are we from the Kesslers, Omiers? I guess we're not particularly close like there. Javon Franklin type would be fine. Great, actually. We've shown we can swim in those waters. Yeah, I mean, I think they're going to have to spend a good deal of money to keep him by Ndongo. And I think that's going to impact a lot of things that are going to happen. I'm curious to see what the decision is with, Miles Kelly and like what his value is of the program, whether they think it's worth. I believe he's the highest paid athlete on the NIL staff. And on the NIL ledger. And what that looks like going forward, because he's not going to be that next year. I think Bynandongo is the guy you pay your money to, and then they have incoming freshmen, I'm sure, are commanding something. So it'll be interesting to see where that money goes, how much money they have. A lot of that stuff's under lock and key right now in terms of finding that info out. It's a little bit easier once they're here to get a little bit better grasp on what's going on. But I don't know. I don't really know. I think that there's budget to get somebody better than what they're playing with. No offense to Tyjon Claude or Ebenezer Dewana, but like those guys are not better than what they replaced for sure, and Javon Franklin and Rodney Howard. And but Damon came in really late. It's hard to make those adjustments. There's already, if you follow like some of the Hoopnick people, they have like lists of guys they think are going to go into the portal already, and I'm sure Damon's on top of all of that stuff. So I imagine that that's what's going on. So this is a question about assistants out watching local hoops playoffs. I would assume so. We'll have to circle up. Usually that's something we find out like kind of after the fact, not necessarily always ahead of time. It's a little different than football where we're right on top of that thing. Hoops guys are a little bit more cautious about sharing some of that info sometimes. So I would assume at least one of them's out locally. I would think it would be a mistake not to be. How do you think Pastner's guys took the wait till I get my guys here comments from Stoudemire? I mean, if you look at the rotation, 4 of the 5 starters are his guys and guys he brought in. Shopping at the last minute at the grocery store, 10 minutes to check out on Thanksgiving Eve or whatever. Like, that's the reality of the situation. But yeah, I don't think. He went in and apologized to the team and was like contrite because he lost his cool. He's a guy that's been very measured and very good about keeping his cool through all of this stuff. And I think that it's been funny to see like people kind of react to something that I thought was plainly obvious if you just look at the level of recruiting they're doing, other than the big guy, Cole Kerouac or whatever his name is that they took. They've been fishing in pretty big pools of water and with the big time kids. So I think that I understood where he was coming from in the comment. I kind of appreciated him being pissy and like unhappy because it was a really poor effort. The final 8 minutes of that game was pretty dreadful in terms of effort. And I think that that's going to be something that, he has to live down a little bit, but I don't think he cares. I indicated this very clearly in the war room. You can go read it. I wrote it on, what was it, Sunday night? I got into him, and they're going hard on that one. That I don't know. It's interesting. That's been an interesting start, that's for sure. He came out of the box really slugging it, and that's it's gonna be something really interesting to watch. Like if he can maintain that, that might be like a big kind of steal for Danny if that turns into like being the next kind of big stud guy. They've been missing like a dude, like a guy that can like carry a team. Really, Parada was to an extent, but like they haven't had like a lot of that. So I think that would be big for them if they can do that. That was crazy though, man, that he hit all those home runs the other night. Like, wow. And imagine like being like, like a freshman doing that. Like so crazy. I don't know. Hey, look who it is. Nice colors there, buddy.
Yeah.
Hey, it's our favorite JOL poster, photobombing you.
Yeah, as long as you say that, we're fine. Okay. Now we're going home.
Can you hear me? Did I just freeze in the video and that's it?
No, I hear you.
Okay.
Oh, there you you went. He just left the studio.
Russell, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm having a little video problem. I'm having a lot of technical problems tonight, so I'm gonna let you go big for a minute while I figure this out. But oops.
All right. Let's see here. Let me go through the questions.
Oh, they wanted to here. This is one you can talk about for a minute while I.
Oh, Drew Burress. Oh gosh. So Drew Burress, he was one of the, as I've said on the message board, I think a few times. I had a pretty good relationship with him from his time as a recruit, and people talking to him and people around him throughout the MLB draft process. He went to the draft combine. Like his status as a draft prospect was legit. And while it's unclear exactly how high he would have been drafted, he definitely should not be playing at the college level. But now Georgia Tech's got him for what I believe will be 3 years. And due to that, I mean, the sky's the limit. I mean, you've been able to see what he's been able to do in such a limited amount of time that as he gets more reps and gets more comfortable at this level, there's what he's able to accomplish and become more of a multifaceted player. And that's without even mentioning what he's been able to do defensively. Locking down center field as a true freshman.
That's crazy. Like I was saying, they've been missing kind of like that alpha dog dude. It'd be interesting if this is the guy that kind of is that, because it was harder for Parada to be like that as a catcher.
Right.
And given his game too was a little different. Like, you know what I mean? Like he was a guy that was very patient and all that.
Yeah. And he wasn't the greatest defensively either. Parada wasn't. And I think that's something that Burress can kind of elevate the defense overall. And I think that's really the big X factor for the team in general at the rest of the season. Peyton Green's shown a little bit of the issues at shortstop that he had at NC State. And, I'm sure, this today, tomorrow, and going into this weekend, that's going to be a big priority. And sorry to go on a baseball tangent, but then you got catcher where Matthew Ellis was really, I wouldn't say struggling, but he wasn't exactly excelling either at the plate or behind the plate. And because of that, you saw Von Lackey, the freshman from Collins Hill, the really, really late ad and a strong eval, I would have to say, by James Ramsey, just to be able to pull that off so late. If I remember correctly, it was actually down to Georgia Tech and Georgia for his commitment. So, maybe he'll get an opportunity to make a splash this weekend, pending the weather, and he'll be able to talk to the media and maybe walk through that decision a little bit more than he did in his story he did with JOL.
All right, we have a series of related questions for you, so I'm going to drop them in. These are for you, Russell. I want to know if he has a Justin Fields hoodie on. That's the first one.
Not yet. Haven't ordered it.
And then Will's following that up with why are you a Justin Fields guy?
I'm a Justin Fields guy. I mean, I got to cover him as a recruit. I got to talk to him as a recruit. I think it's more so just a fan of him as a person than it is him as a football player. I think that might kind of get in the way of things because I remember when Ole Miss was recruiting him when he decommitted from Penn State before he ended up taking what he took at Georgia, and the rest is history from there. But just that, and then also I think the fan base and the Falcons need a face of the franchise. I mean, a running back can't be a face of the franchise. Wide receiver really can't be the face of a franchise.
There's only about 3 or 4 of those people ever.
Yeah,
wide receiver.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And no offense to Drake London, no offense to Kyle Pitts, no offense to Bijan Robinson, but none of them are it.
All right. We'll I'll jump back into the JOL thread. And the first question, which I was waiting on, the first question that I was waiting for you to help answer was, did Crawford leaving surprise either one of you? And my answer to that is no.
No, I think
ambitious guy.
You said what?
I say he's an ambitious guy. Like,
right. Yeah. I mean, he's got high hopes. I mean, he was a really good
he's
recruiter.
Not a Georgia Tech grad. He's not like, let me think about it this way. If you were looking at this as a purely business decision, divorce yourself from being Georgia Tech or whatever else, right? If, say, you're in the soft drink business, because we have some people who work for Coca-Cola, and a big brand like Coca-Cola or Pepsi goes to offer you a job, and you're working at, and I don't want to make this, I'll say Dr. Pepper for Georgia Tech. And my video froze on a weird face, which is exciting. I'll just finish my point real quick. So basically, like, if you're like Dr. Pepper and you want to go work at Coke or Pepsi, you're going to take the job at Coke and Pepsi, right? Because it's not like your parents grew up and they worked at Dr. Pepper and you had all these connections. It's a different situation for Brett Key or guys who are graduates or whatever than Josh Crawford, who's a guy that was a high school coach in Georgia. You share your thoughts, Russell.
Yeah, I agree. I think, with Crawford and his, connections at the high school level in the state of Georgia, I think his that just made him more of a valuable asset. And after getting some results in terms of higher caliber recruiting wins, when you're out there, winning out on, Isaiah Canyon, Trey Horn, and just being able to build that resume and reputation, that's really when things got to start picking up. And, Georgia was not the only school that showed interest in Crawford. I think that's kind of goes without saying, but that's just the truth. And, once Georgia reached out, I think at first it probably was for the wide receiver coach position. And then they ended up going with James Coley. But I believe they would not have hired James Coley if they did not know they were also going to get Josh Crawford. Not exactly, locked in or tied in with, the happenings of UGA football, but that had to be a thought in their head before they went and hired James Coley, who, he's a good recruiter, but he doesn't have those relationships and ability to go at it in the state of Georgia.
No, and I think they wanted Jimmy Smith, and they whiffed on that for whatever reason, couldn't make it happen. And then they had to find, it was more about recruiting Georgia than anything else for that second spot. Like I said, Kirby Smart was the running backs coach at Georgia for 1 year. Like, it is not like being a quarterbacks coach or a safeties coach or something. Like, it is not the most complicated thing in the world. You could argue it's maybe the easiest in some ways position to coach on the offensive side of the ball, even more than tight end, because there's a lot more to tight end in some ways, depending on what you're running. And it's no shot against running backs coaches, because I have a lot of them that are close friends. But, like, I think it was about recruiting Georgia and getting a young guy that you can groom for several years that maybe won't bounce on you too quickly.
No, yeah, I can agree with you on that. I was actually joking with a head coach of another Power 4 program, and
you gotta get that Power 4 right, buddy.
Yeah, exactly. And we were talking about how Josh needs to just go on YouTube and just look up some running back coaching drills, and he should be good.
I mean, yeah, it's not. It's generally like that and the tight end coach are usually the two, like, maybe least, like, X's and O's thing. So the other question that people have been asking is, like, about sort of timeline. And my thought on this is that Brandon's generally not hurried this stuff. Yes, he would like to. They're 2 weeks away, like 10, 12, 11 days, whatever it is, from start spring ball. You have Buster Faulkner, you have Nate Brock, you have DeAndre Smelter. You got guys capable of chipping in at different spots to get you through the spring. I think you want to have somebody, but I don't think there's like this absolute pressure to get it done, this week or
You
something. Like,
don't? You don't think
I
there
don't think
is?
I don't think so, man. I think knowing Brent, I think he would like to get it done, but I don't think he's going to just rush into hiring, some Joe Schmo like this week, just because they're a week away from spring ball. Like, I,
Yeah,
you
no, I
know,
think
I think he's going to figure it out. Now, whether he can get it done, it's hard too because people have buyouts. There's all kinds of different things that go on, and that's something we saw a lot of in the DB coaching search, right? Like we had 4 stories written about guys that
yeah,
were probably going to take the job at one point or another and didn't,
right.
and things break down, and that's why you try to not. That's why you try to not like get too caught up, and that's why I try to be careful with like how I explain everything and like what I share and what you share, and that's because this stuff all changes in a minute. Look at Josh Crawford. He's if Sean Elliott doesn't randomly leave South Carolina, Dell McGee's still a running backs coach at Georgia, and Josh Crawford's still a wide receivers coach at Georgia Tech.
Exactly. Yeah, those are the dominoes we love to talk about on JOL.
Here, this is one for you while I experiment some more with my camera.
Experiment. Let's see. How would you rank? Yeah, I think that's the big issue, right now, especially with the emergence of OTE, which Damon Stoudemire and the rest of the Georgia Tech staff have really been able to capitalize on. But there are so many kids every single year who are moving to the state of Georgia, whether it be for football, whether it be for basketball, heck, even baseball. These kids that are coming here for this, increased exposure, also for, sorry to say this now, but NIL and the ability for them to create a brand for themselves as they prepare for college. There's these things happening all the time, so I would say that I would rank Metro Atlanta pretty high up. I don't know if it's top 3, top 2, or anything like that, but I'd definitely say they're in the top 5. Well, where would you rank them at, Kelly?
I mean, they're definitely in the top 5 too. I would say, like, I think that,
Yeah.
I think like OTE and things like that have like really blown up. You've seen, baseball. Obviously, we all, where I live in East Cobb, and that's been a thing
Right.
forever. And other parts of the state now are getting into it too. I have nephews that are that play down on the coast. And are in big time travel baseball down there too, like on that Georgia, South Carolina, Florida border.
Right.
So it'll be interesting. And this is another dovetail question into basketball here. So we kind of bounce around topics. Caleb Wilson over at Holy Innocents, which is not too far from my house. I think with Caleb Wilson, they didn't get the OV out of him. And,
no, not yet.
And don't have one scheduled yet. So, like, that to me sort of telling in the age of where everyone can do it.
Yeah.
They hasn't wanted to take one. And so I guess that's sort of the thing, we're wanting to see him show up some, like, for something, whether it's that or just like a really, an elaborate unofficial visit.
Yeah, no, I think they need to get him on campus, and he needs to visit. You know what I mean? It's not like they're not reaching out, trying to invite him to games and trying to get him on campus. But I mean, at the same time, though, while you're trying to get him on campus, you want to get him on campus right now for a game, the way things have been going, prior to the recent win, or do you want him to come on a day when you don't have a game and have the chance to spend time with him and kind of go really deep with him on the vision of the program and how he can change things and all that. And that someone in that same question, they're talking about Bryson Tiller, who is Jaden Mustaf's teammate on City Reapers, and Tiller is still, I wouldn't say he's wide open, but Georgia Tech's heavily in the mix there, and in a pretty good spot.
Here's another hoops question. This is more about Augusta. I don't really know what the answer is to that, other than I wonder if there's like an educational aspect, or like, because people go out there, they're out there for Peach Jam, like they certainly are familiar that Augusta exists, right? Like, so I don't know why that's not being recruited more heavily. I really don't have a good answer for you on that. Sorry. There's always areas that are under recruited for whatever reason. Usually it takes something being it takes someone maybe breaking through, like having a program that really breaks through that's consistent or something. I don't know. That's always one of those things I get. That's one of like the most like asked questions I get all the time, is like, why is school X or Y, Z or whatever not getting dudes? And
right.
It's hard to, or area or whatever, like South Georgia used to be like the one that people under recruited. Paul Johnson's in the College Football Hall of Fame in part for some of the work that he did down there back at Georgia Southern. So we'll see. Someone asked, who would we hire? Someone with recruiting ties to Georgia or another area, big name power or up and comer? I think you got to hire somebody who can recruit Georgia for the wide receivers coach position. We're pivoting back to that. I think optimally that's what you would get. You need to strengthen yourself in Georgia. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I think if I would call Pitt's new wide receiver coach, JJ Laster, who has had quite the come up this offseason. I cannot remember the other job he took, but he's elevated each time. And I think he would be someone I would call. But yeah, I think getting someone who has proven results in the state of Georgia and is willing to focus the majority of their efforts on the state of Georgia rather than, going out and going after, top guys and just pushing to get into top schools lists, things like that.
Yeah, I think that it's interesting because you can go a couple different ways. Like Tashard, look at where he was at North Texas, and they weren't necessarily doing a lot of recruiting here, but he had the ties and the connections. So I think you can look at those things as well and factor into that. Question about NIL funding to sign 5+ top 100 recruits in football or remaining Brent's vision. This is a strange question, dude. No offense. It's just that's not where they would spend their money. What's up? Something bad happened?
I was just UGA lost their first baseball game tonight, and they got beat pretty good by Michigan State. 19.
Is Michigan State any good at baseball? I have no idea.
No.
Oh, okay. I figured you would know the answer to that.
Yeah.
This is this is also a tough question here.
Is it on the board? Let me go get it.
Yeah, these are on the board. So, like, how many starting caliber transfers do you expect to come in for defense after the spring? Where do we need more depth? DL, linebacker, secondary, all three? Well, I think you would like to add depth to all three. They're a little capped out on scholarships, but I don't know. We don't know who's going to be in the portal right now. That's the X factor that everyone doesn't know, right? Like, so it just depends on who's in the portal and like what their connections are and what they're interested in, whether they can get into school. Like, there's a few different pieces of all of this. And right now we're not in a position to like give you like a real answer. Obviously they found Paul Maiola last year in the mid-year portal. I would think linebacker you would
Florida too, right?
Oh, Eddie Kelly? I feel like Eddie Kelly was in the spring, wasn't he?
I don't know. I thought maybe.
I feel like, well, he might not have come. I think committed like before at least. I don't feel like he came in. I don't think he was like a mid-year guy. He played his true freshman year and then he bounced. He wasn't there in the spring, I don't think, at USF. But yeah, I don't. It is what it is, right? It just depends. Oh, he didn't? Okay.
No.
Huh. So, all right, they
My
found
old brain.
two. So they found a starter and a half. There you go, Russell. Well, you're younger than I am. That's
Yeah.
why your brain works better. So a starter and a half out of the portal essentially last year, with
Right. Yeah.
limited
It's just
scholarships too. Yeah. So for the post spring football window, but a lot's
I
going
think
on because you've had so many coaching changes this offseason. So it's going to be interesting. Like you had people at Boston College, UCLA, obviously Alabama. Uh, where else? You've had coordinator changes at probably a third of the schools in the Southeast, maybe, if not more, like on one side of
yeah,
the ball or the
exactly.
other. I mean, there's been a lot going
I,
on.
I,
Georgia, I think, is
I,
like still +5 or something, like on their numbers. Like, there's a lot that could still go down.
right. Yeah, I think I wouldn't be surprised if you saw at least one Georgia State player do what a few of the baseball players did and leave Georgia State for Georgia Tech here in the next couple of months,
That'll go over well.
especially when they play each other. Georgia
Yeah, well,
State
that's
season.
what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
Someone asked us for our top candidates for wide receiver coach. I don't know. I mean, my thought on that is you ask Buster. If I'm Brent Key, my move is I ask Buster Faulkner if he has a strong feeling on someone, like he did with Josh Crawford, and that's your starting point. And then you look at other people available. Someone mentioned the guy at UCF who's been really a strong dude. Like, I don't know who it is. Cody,
Eastern Michigan now.
maybe. I don't know.
Grant Hurd.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's the Eastern Michigan now.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Okay.
Gus pushed. Well, I don't know if Gus pushed him out or somebody pushed him out.
Apparently things have been a mess down there from what I've gathered on multiple fronts.
Yes.
And multiple sports too, which is interesting. But I start there. Cody, who I mentioned on the board, the former Auburn guy that worked with Buster at Middle. If he can't get an NFL job, he's a guy I would talk to. But again, like maybe I'm sure Brent has a list of dudes. Like he's a really organized guy. And this was not like a total surprise that Josh was leaving. This was just something I thought that he would be here another year. And Russell did, I think, as well. But it was not a surprise that he took a job. I think it's just what it is.
Yeah, I think the timing of it was the crazy part. I thought he was going to leave earlier in the carousel sometime after signing day, but not in late February.
When the coaching carousel goes off the rails in a couple of weeks, any hoops prospects you think might shake loose for us to chase? I don't know. I don't know what there is. I like my gut is no, unless it's like a big man and they miss out on Dorian. Like,
because I'm assuming they're talking about recruits. I mean,
like I'm not. Yeah, like
a kid from Ohio State that come into the portal and end up at Georgia Tech, but they're them and everybody else. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. It seems like Georgia Tech will be getting either Daquan Davis or Justin Pippen. Is that true? I would say the odds are above 50% that they get one of them. I would go that far.
Yeah, because I think if they somehow miss on Pippen, I think they'll meet Davis's number. Or maybe
the thing with Pippen is, I think the two other schools involved, both their coaches might get fired. So like,
that's true too.
Like I think it was at Stanford and was it UCF maybe? I don't remember who the other school was. Like I just know like two of the. So like a couple of the main schools that were involved, like the coaches like on thin ice.
Yeah.
So.
I'm trying to get in somewhere in that Pippen family so I can get a story, but it's not that easy when they've got cameras everywhere.
Apparently, maybe you need to hit up like their PR firm and like set it up that way.
Yeah, I'm sure he probably has an agent.
I'm sure. Would Damon go after center in the portal if they get Dorian? Yes. They're going to take a transfer center, an older guy. Who would hit more home runs in slow pitch softball game? You or I? I haven't hit a baseball since my oldest stopped playing, which was pre-COVID.
So yeah, I think I might win that one.
You might. As my thing goes down again, we'll just highlight Russell again.
We may have to get some sponsors together and figure that one out.
Apparently, I gotta buy a new webcam. This one's a piece of crap and keeps crapping out on me. I thought it was my computer, and I switched computers, and it's still crapping out. So it's not something I can test easily on my own. Like I'm not gonna sit here and do a 40-minute YouTube show for myself. So we'll have to just figure it out. And the one that's built into my laptop's the one that kept turning me into Grimace. So I'm not doing that either. Plus minus 40 home runs for Burris this season.
Minus. And that's nothing against him. I mean, he's going at an impossible to keep up rate right now. I think I wouldn't call it regression either. It's just he's going to be hitting a lot of doubles. You know, he's so young and still kind of getting into his power and his potential that a lot of the balls that are home runs now are, eventually going to go down to doubles. And then because he's not going to be making the exact level of contact he is when he's going against ACC level pitchers. And, when that happens, he's going to have to adjust because they're going to adjust too, and just like you've seen at the Major League Baseball level when Austin Riley came to the majors and was literally on fire and then was batting close to 200 for a while. And then he adjusted after they adjusted. And I mean, that's just how baseball works. And that's what makes it such a great sport is because it's a game of adjustments, whether it's, you're in a slump and you're questioning your mechanics, or if you're on a hot streak and you're just trying to hold on to it as long as you can.
Yeah, unless you're Ichiro and you just hit like 250 singles every year, like everyone's pretty inconsistent. Like, there's a question about the Paul Johnson interview. Is that how you thought it would go? I mean, I everything that Paul said in those things is something I've been told 100 times in private by him. I mean, he unloaded in December of 2018 about the MOBS at the time. So I'm not surprised by that whatsoever. It is what it is. I'm not going to listen to it, but I've seen what everyone said, and I know exactly what he said because he's very, very much telling his side of things, which I think are very accurate about what happened. So, I'm sure you didn't listen to it, Russell.
No, I don't really have any interest in it, to be honest with you.
Well, you weren't around for that, so.
I covered Jeff for 4 years or however many years. It was enough for me. I don't need to go back and look on it. I'm just looking forward to the future and, covering recruiting and helping JOL continue to grow.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing. Like the comments he said, I think that, Paul said what I guess. I don't know. I mean, for football players, I think jump in the portal after spring. I think we have 3 guys we're still kind of keeping eyes on, but none of them are like the ones that you guys immediately are concerned about, like being the ones that jump. These are not those guys. And we had a couple that jumped like at the last minute that I thought we were going to jump. So, we had actually I think we might have even deleted one of the stories and then I had to scramble to put something together because I thought the dude was just going to stay through spring and then he ended up bouncing.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, that sounds familiar. Yeah.
2, we already know the wide receivers coaches. No, because Brent hasn't hired anyone. If so, most on here worried about who might.
I do think that he'll have a wide receiver coach in the next week, though.
Yeah, probably. I was just saying you don't have to have somebody hired by like Sunday
No, it's
night.
not a must, but you've got the recruiting window opening back up on Sunday. And like you said, you've got spring practice coming up. I mean, the last thing you want to do is get behind the eight ball at the wide receiver position when the state of Georgia is as loaded as it is.
So this guy wants to know if there's a possibility of gaining people with a new wide receivers coach, not just losing someone, which is the constant text fan worry. I'd say, yeah, it just depends on who it is and if they have connections to people and stuff. And that's can be totally random, right? Like there are guys that maybe a kid didn't go play for them. Say if you're the wide receiver coach at UCF, that guy, I'll use him just as a random example. There's a lot of kids who don't like Gus's offense, don't want to play in it. And there are guys who thrive in it. And so maybe there's a kid that didn't like Gus or didn't like UCF or whatever that didn't go there that would like to be in Atlanta. You just never know. Or whoever else, insert random guy from, a G5 school. Like, he may have had a kid that was over his head or a cousin or something.
Yeah, I mean, another example would be, Chansey Stuckey and the relationship he had with Isaiah Canyon at Notre Dame when he had him committed. Yep. And then he ended up secretly visiting Georgia Tech and Josh Crawford and then flipping a couple of days later. So, those kind of relationships are also hard to keep up with and hard to, from our side of things, obviously they can keep them up until they get enrolled in the school. But, those are the kind of things and connections that can lead to kids transferring in, years down the road.
There were questions whether Crawford was like sort of a payback for Buster. I don't.
So what would the trade be? Like if we were putting it on the table, we were trying to process it through a trade machine.
So Buster Faulkner's Von Grissom, right? Like the dude from the Braves that like couldn't get on the field in the infield because the infield was stacked, right? And they got traded to the Red Sox. But they didn't get Chris Sale back. They got like, Nick Pivetta or like, I don't know, like some relief pitcher from the Red Sox. Like it wasn't, you weren't getting.
Yeah, I was thinking like Brian Bayo, but yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, him. Why not? Like sinker ball pitcher.
A young guy with a lot of upside who, shows flashes, but really good flashes too. And I think that kind of really describes Crawford. But I was even going back to some transfers because they added the.
They added Seither and.
They added Seither. They've added Lightsey.
Blaylock.
Yeah, and I think that's a fair trade if you get all of them and Buster for Josh Crawford. I think you'd be making Bleacher Report's list of the most lopsided trades.
There you go.
But,
did I? Let's see. All right, which player would you, since 2000, would you pick to get us to 10 wins in 2024? Same question for basketball. Since 2000. That's tough for Russell. I think Calvin, if you put Calvin and Eric Singleton together as a wide receiver duo, that would probably get you there. I think I could throw to those two, like, dudes, if you had them as your two outside guys. Like, so that's what my mind goes to with football. If you're going to talk a defensive guy, I don't know, because it's hard. They had a lot of good ones in the early 2000s. Derek Morgan, the way he played his last year at Georgia Tech was incredible on defense. But like, I don't know. I would go with Calvin because if you put that dude on one side and Eric Singleton on the other, and you have Malik and Leary in the slots, that's pretty dominant. It would make a difference. That's probably plus 2 wins there just because of how good Calvin was. Calvin, think about it, he never had like great quarterback play. Reggie would tell you, Reggie Ball, that he wasn't like great, like never lived up to his potential. So like that's where my mind goes. Russell's probably not as versed. Like you'd have to go think about like I don't know, someone from Jeff's era.
I'm trying to look here.
With basketball, I mean, I think if you put Ben Lammers on this team, as good as Ben Lammers played, like when he was healthy, like that may have been enough to swing this team over just because of his ability to pass and play defense and shoot a 15-foot jumper, like as a big man at 7 foot, like that would have been huge for this team. Or just a guard that could break, like Jared Jack. Probably does he fall in that line? I don't know. Just someone that could break somebody down off the dribble too would do it. Or like Shump's defense, man, would have been like really good on this team. They're missing some of that.
See, I would have said James Banks.
So Ben was much better than James Banks.
Well, I just meant from his, physicality and from what I remember. Gosh,
so Ben was like an all ACC defensive player of the year or something, if I remember correctly, and an all ACC player.
Or Chris Bosh. I mean, Chris Bosh was the one everybody in the chat was thinking, but I don't know. I don't really know because him and Dongo, as much as Dongo is not as perimeter centric as Bosh is or was, I think that their game are a little bit too similar to really make that big of a difference.
Stanford
football, I still couldn't think of anybody.
Yeah, I think it's Calvin, dude. I think that's the answer. Like Calvin was the greatest college wide receiver of his generation and the greatest NFL receiver of his generation. Like,
yeah.
I mean, I don't think there's anyone else on that level, like as good as, whoever you want to pick, from John Dwyer to Shard or, guys before them or whoever. I just think that's where it goes, or even, that's post Joe Hamilton. So he wouldn't be in there.
Right.
There's the answer on the two schools I couldn't remember.
Yeah. A&M. Yeah.
All right, so first commit for 2025, Russell. We're putting you on the spot, dude.
March. That's all. That's the easy answer is March. Being it, March is 2 days away, but it really is going to be March because they're going to be able to get these kids back on campus. They should really start to be able to capitalize on some of the relationships and start to really kind of put together not a priority list, but an order of who they want, and then from there be able to secure a commitment. I wouldn't guarantee it's going to be an offensive lineman, but that'd probably be my guess. I don't think it'll be a wide receiver. I can tell you that
much. Damon has praised Sawari and Dewana. Any chance they get processed? Go read my war room. I totally delved into that on JOL right now. What's y'all's thoughts? I went through the whole roster and give everybody something else. Court storming.
Man, Will's coming.
I love it. That kid, from what I saw, that kid dicked around and didn't get off the court when he should have. He was the only one of his teammates still on the court because he was doing something in the middle of the court.
Yeah, he was moping around.
Yeah, and so I mean, if you don't get off the field, that's sort of on you. It's football's dangerous, man. I lost a shoe in one of those. There have been some real crazy. Yeah, that was in college. Yeah, I lost a shoe.
Oh, you were in college. I thought you were a reporter out there.
I was in No, I was in college. We were at a game, and I think it was Georgia, Tennessee. I was with two girls. We were leaving the stadium, but we walked down by the they have the hedges or whatever, and we were getting pressed against them. So I threw the two girls that were with us over, then hopped over onto the field. And then we just got stuck in the melee because it was safer to do that than to try to push your way back out of the crowd. That was probably they had beat Tennessee for the first time in 6 years or something.
Okay.
After Peyton Manning and T. Martin and all that.
Yeah.
And that would have been like a freshman year in college, and we were just at the game and trying to leave, and went down. Like I had better seats, so we were down for that game for some reason. We were on the lower bowl, so I tried to walk down and go out that way instead of going, because people were coming down from the upper decks and stuff trying to get down to the field. We ended up getting stuck, and that's like one of maybe like 6 games I went to in my entire life in that stadium, like not as a journalist, but I remember that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see an issue with it. I think there needs to be like some amount of time in between the moment the final buzzer goes off and the moment that the fans can storm the court. But some of these, consequences and fines and all this stuff people are trying to talk about, I think is a little bit absurd. Just finish the game, get off the court if you lost, and move on.
Oh, some people are saying Chris Bosh for that basketball question, or Will Bynum, or Luke Cincher. Luke the redhead, who you don't know about, probably, Russell.
No, I don't. Lammers, was Lammers there? Was when Pastner's first year? Was that who that was?
Yeah, he was. So Ben was on the bench the year before. He was playing like 5-10 minutes a game, and
Gotcha.
for Gregory, and then he turned into like an All ACC player his first year under Josh. His second year, it was Okoye's the year Okoye. They went to China. It was that year. He got hurt, and Josh kept playing him, and he should have shut him down for a couple weeks. And that ended up like really costing them that season because he was never the same. Someone wants to know about Kenyatta Watson. I mean, I wouldn't call Kenyatta Watson the main recruiting guy. He was not like running the recruiting department at Georgia Tech by any stretch. He was the NFL liaison.
No, yeah,
involved in recruiting. Yeah.
He was the one running the recruiting department. I think that, the recruiting department is, I wouldn't say in flux, but, it's in progress. They are, don't really have any thoughts on it because there's really no thoughts to have on the 2025 class. I think, there were some missed opportunities with the 2024 class, but you really can't complain when you flip a Montre Bradford on signing day and you pull a rabbit out of your hat in the final 2 weeks and end up with Anthony Carey. I mean, those were 2 pretty big recruiting wins that kind of showed that Georgia Tech is who they say they are and who they want to be in recruiting.
Do you feel like the SEC is overhyped in hoops? Is there anything the ACC can do to regain public perception as a top hoops conference? Do you like calling basketball hoops, or more of a traditionalist? Do you like calling basketball hoops, or more traditionalist in that regard? I got it. I don't care about calling it hoops or basketball. It took me a second to grasp that part of the question. On the SEC, Duke and Carolina are not as good as they're supposed to be, and when that happens, people like think the ACC sucks, and it has been that way like the entire time I've covered the Georgia Tech. Like when those 2 teams are not both really good, and there's not like a third team like Virginia or someone else that's really good, everyone assumes the league sucks. And then they go in the tournament and they outperform everybody because the teams are generally like more battle tested than some of the other ones. And there's a lot of teams in the SEC, like Alabama's one, that like Alabama's either going to go far or they're going to get bounced in the first weekend because like they're geared weirdly. And there's several other Kentucky's like that. Kentucky's a team that can easily get bounced out early. Like, so no, I don't. Yeah. I think the coaching is down in the ACC, and that's the bigger problem because you went from having Coach K and Boeheim and King Roy and all these dudes, and you're down to like Larinaga. The best coaches are like Larinaga, Steve Forbes, Tony Bennett, and and Ham at Florida State. Like, that's not the same as it was like 5 years ago.
Yeah, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. I don't really have anything to say to disagree with that. I think, the SEC is, I mean, like you mentioned, Kentucky can either be in the Elite Eight or they could probably lose in the first round a 14 seed. It's that kind of season for them. And then Mississippi State's up and down. Ole Miss is up and down. Alabama's up and down. More up lately, but
they just don't play defense.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And that, like you said, once the level of coaching kind of catches up a little bit more, I think adding SMU in basketball will be big because I think that program is one of the better in the American.
Traditionally, yeah, I think they're having this is not a great year for them, but yeah, traditionally they've been pretty good.
I thought they were ranked at one point, I think.
They were. I think they've hit the skids lately.
Well, they might have lost to South Florida beat them, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes, South Florida, the now basketball juggernaut. Right. Russell, if you could purchase any rival site outside of your current empire and provide content for it, which one would you choose? Which school? If you could go cover anything.
Oh, Hawaii.
I would well, yeah, that's Hawaii, USC. I don't really want to live out there. Colorado is one that I thought about a lot because Boulder, apparently. I've never been to Boulder. Apparently, Boulder's really nice. Texas.
You just want to cover Prime. You missed your chance to cover Prime. So
no, sir. I'm all about the lifestyle, dude. I'm not into covering that mess.
You could go to Colorado, listen to your music. You'd be living your best life.
I wanted to go retire up in the Carolinas and cover one of those schools, but I don't know. Maybe it's not something I've really thought about a lot. So I don't know. Someone wants to know, Russell, if there's any players that fans can get excited about this fall.
See, I looked at that.
I guess I'm asking the freshmen. I assume.
Freshman. Obviously Anthony Carey. I think you might see Jamison Riggs fighting for some reps at some point. Isaiah Canyon, once he gets his shoulder, everything right. I think there's going to be plenty of opportunity for the freshmen to make plays, and that was one thing that Brent Key was not afraid to do last season, and I think that's going to help him in recruiting moving forward is his ability and willingness to play whoever the best player is. There's no he's a senior, he needs to play. I promised him that I'd be his best friend, and I would there's none of those kind of things. There's no. I don't even know how to describe it, but it's just different. Yeah.
And a couple last questions here. Someone's asking about bringing in more difference makers on defense, and will they have NIL money for that? And the budget is what the budget is, really, for this year, I would say. Bless you, Russell. Russell's having an allergy attack. Here, I will go full screen to give him a little cover. But yeah, he has a budget and they're going to use it however they use it. If there's guys available and he feels like allocating money, then that's fine, or he needs to go raise some, but I don't know. Someone wants to know about Ndongo. Oh, I'm sorry, one. Ndongo, basketball IQ. Yeah, he's green. He's a true freshman. That's why he's going to come back and play in college next year, in my opinion. He needs to learn his basketball IQ, stuff. And it's funny because one of the things he screwed up on in the game, early in the season, was those wraparound passes where he would abandon his guy to try to go block shot and let it on a guard drive, right? And then they would wrap a pass around him to a big man for a dunk or a layup. And he finally stopped doing that. He adjusted. It's coming to him. It just takes time, man. He doesn't have the cumulative reps of a guy like Carter Knox or, Mustaf or any of those OTE kids that have been playing high level basketball forever. He doesn't have that memory bank of basketball at this level. And so it's going to take him some time to figure that out. So I think, yes, you could see an exponential improvement on. Just think if he's more consistent with his offense, if he gets a 15-footer more consistently, because he can hit it. Those things, that kind of thing. Somebody has a question about Will. I love you, buddy, but we're not getting into UGA's quarterback room. I appreciate the question though. 3 questions for baseball to wrap things up here. I told you in the preseason about Tate McKee's breaking ball and his ability to pitch backwards in the count to keep hitters from sitting on the fastball. So does he start Sunday at Corey, or does Patel have a short leash and Tate is in by the 3rd inning?
See, I think it depends. I mean, I could really see Georgia Tech going with the TBD on when they put the release out tomorrow for the Sunday starter. But if it were me, I would pitch Tate. Tate would be the starter. Tate would have the full expectation and know going into this weekend that, hey, you're going to start on Sunday unless something goes terribly wrong on Friday or Saturday. And if that happens, then, yeah, you could throw Mason and then maybe pitch Ben King and kind of go from there. But I think Tate is the one who has earned that spot.
Pitching, we lost Russell. You there, bud?
Yeah, I'm still here. Hold on just a second.
Yeah, no worries. We're all having technical issues tonight. The pitching showing signs of improvement, Russell. Would you agree with that so far?
Oh, absolutely. I tweeted about it yesterday. I mean, a 4-hit shutout this time last year would have been absurd for them to be able to do that against, a Georgia State team who, while has been struggling so far this season, they've been really able to Georgia Tech was really able to shut them down. I mean, really good confidence booster going into this weekend where they're going to face some really talented hitters for the first time.
Who will be the 5th pitcher? Does Waldrop become this year's Dodd and Schuster?
Ooh, 5th starter for the Braves. That's a tough one. I don't know. I think it's still too early to tell. And then I do think that Waldrop is going to probably get, I'd say, a couple starts in AAA, and then he should be ready. So, yeah, I do think he does have the opportunity to be the, Dodd or Schuster. I just hope that doesn't end with him being traded because I think his ceiling is so high as a pitcher, whether it end up being as a shutdown reliever or as a short-term rotation guy, that it would just be really sad for him to go. I don't want to get rid of him.
All right, this one's for you, buddy. Who ends the season with more home runs, Charlie or Drew?
The fact that he said he wants me on the record with this, I gotta go with Charlie. I just, Charlie's got the proven ability, left-handed bat going in Athens. I mean, it just feels right.
And last question. This one's for you, Russell.
Oh gosh, over under 19.
19's a lot of baseball games for people who have kids, man.
Right. That's a lot of, yeah. I mean, not 19. I'd say I'd probably be at 5, 6. Depends how the season goes. Depends how softball goes. Depends on a lot of things.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Sorry about all the glitches. We'll keep working on it. And wanted to get Russell back on here. Appreciate him jumping on, making time tonight. And thanks for all you staying up late, being night owls with us. And if you're not a subscriber to Jackets Online, subscribe today. Helps us do our thing. Tell your friends if you are a subscriber to Jackets Online or Georgia Tech Fanatics. Follow us on our social medias. Russell's got his on there. Mine is Kelly_Quinlan. And try to be nice out there, people, to others. That's my message.
That's right.
Good night. Hit the like button too, yeah.